Guess what happened? When I hit my rock bottom and I lost everything, the business, my family, my wife, my kids, all of this stuff, guess where they were? Nowhere to be found. I literally lost my entire network. When I hit my lowest, none of them were there. They all discarded me 100%. Like, they didn't want to deal with me. They didn't want anything to do with me. And it was all gone.
There was one person in all of my network and all of my acquaintances and all of my friendships and all of my family that looked at me one day with disgust and because they saw me flirting with another guy, and they said, "That's disgusting." And they were so serious and they had it all over their face, and they're like, "You're married. That's disgusting." And I love that person. And I'm like, I get emotional. I'm like, oh, because that's the person that I needed in my life. And that's the person that we're going to be for you. Because it is disgusting to talk about your spouse. It is disgusting to run around on your spouse. You're married. You have a covenant relationship. That was the darkest, like one of the darkest hours of my life. Tommy wanted a divorce. He had divorce papers. He was dating people. And he was planning on moving out, had a city picked out, an apartment picked out. Like, he had all this, like, he had...
Like 3 hours away. It wasn't close.
He was not...
I was done with everything.
He was done. I no longer had friends and family and all the associates. And now I'm not talking to my family. It was one of the most isolating seasons of my life.
Hey, welcome back to the Marriage 2.0 podcast. So today we're going to be talking about really when you go to move forward out of hell on earth and you want to actually fix your marriage, you're going to face something that maybe you're not aware of, which is adversity and people's opinions.
Massive amounts of opinions. And what's funny is people are like, oh no, like, I don't want to live in a way where, people talk about me or whatever. People talk about you anyways. Okay. We're just going to go ahead and throw this out there, and we're going to dive into that. But first, before we do, we're going to address some comments from last week's podcast that was commented on some different reels. Personally, I think they're quite hilarious. So, Tommy, why don't you go ahead and tell them a couple of things, and I'll comment since they were about me.
Yeah, don't worry. We won't call out your usernames. Not that they're really real anyways. But regardless, anyways, like, it's one of those things where people came in, they commented on a reel from a podcast, that the last episode that we did, and Desnekka was talking about, you're not going to tell me to... I said that she's not going to stay out till 2 a.m. and you're like, oh, really? And then that's exactly what she did and stayed out. And that's kind of the premise of it. And people were like, wow, you're the reason why men don't stay married. Wow, I remember when I was a kid and then I grew up. Or like, there's so many different, like, just ridiculous comments that are so out of context because you don't know, you didn't watch it.
You watched a snippet, but here's the thing. So first of all, they were completely missing the fact that Tommy was trying to be a dominant dictator, which plays a role in a marriage as being unhealthy, right? So it's not just the female being a rebellion, and it's not just the man being a dictator. It is both are issues, both are problems. And so at the time, was I acting childish when I stayed out till 2 a.m. out of rebellion? I'm like, you're not going to tell me what to do. Yes, 100%. I agree. And to this day, the only thing that's childish about me at this moment, well, let me just tell you, is I have a childlike spirit of I know how to play, I know how to have fun, and I don't need to drink or get high to do it. And I don't need to stay out to 2 a.m. In fact, I like to be in bed before 10. So those are things like I know how to have a good time and I know how to play games and just have fun. So that is childish about me, but my mental and emotional maturity is completely different. And that's the whole thing that we wanted people to see, was that you can grow and you can become a completely different version of you than who you used to be.
Yep. Yeah. So that's why it's important, because if you read the actual description, then you would know this is a clip from the podcast. Then you would know, if you go back and look at it, oh, this is their marriage story, where they were in their past, like, is the key. Like, but You didn't do that. You just went to assuming, and which is fine. I get people do that. It's funny, to us, but when it comes to, so continue to comment. I don't really care. We don't really care. It's just funny to us because it just shows that you need to go watch the full episode. And then you would be like, oh, yeah, okay, this makes a lot more sense. right?
And it just really highlights, like, if you're blaming me for our marriage being in hell on earth, then obviously it just shows that, well, you need a lot more growth, because it's never one person. It's always two. There's a reason why you attracted the person that you did, and that you're in the situation that you're in. And that's a hard truth, and a hard truth that many people don't want to hear. I know for me, it's one that I didn't want to hear. And, I will say that most adults in relationships today, this is what the childish things come out as. They're like, oh, well, if you do this, then I'll do that. I'll treat you how you treat me. I'll show you how it feels. Oh, you make me mad, I'm going to punish you. I'm going to give you the silent treatment. All of those things are childish. And the thing is until you do the deep work to have emotional and mental maturity, then you might have an adult body, but really, like, you have the emotional maturity of a child. So you do act very childish. So yes. I know people in their 80s acting.
We've worked with them, literally.
Yeah. Although, yeah, like, there's not an age limit here, like, and it's never too late. So all the way up to their 80s that are adult bodies, but childish. And so it's very common. So just a FYI on that. But we would rather be answering your questions, but we will comment on your comments as well. But we want to hear questions from you. So if you have questions, ask us, drop it so that we can address them before we dive into the next topic. So next time I would like to be able to answer some questions.
Yeah, for sure. So like an emotionally mature, emotionally stable person, what they do is they go in and they show up with curiosity, not assumptions.
And not blame.
And not blame and, and judgmental like spirits about them. So like come in with curiosity, and we're here to answer. We're literally open books. We're here to answer any questions that you have. But let's dive into this topic because it has to do with like what we just talked about, kind of. It was kind of funny that it came up beforehand. We had a reel that like kind of went a little bit viral there. But regardless, a lot of people, when they go to heal in their marriages and they go to fix things, what happens is they end up facing something they weren't really expecting. And I'm not talking about, it was hard to do it. That's sure. Like, I mean, if you don't have the right tools and things in place, sure, it can be hard. But when it comes down to it, what we're talking about is other people's opinions and directions and like statements and stuff like that of your life.
Really just living different than the norm. And for me, this is one of the hardest parts of healing that people did not talk about. And so we are different people, different type of, situation here. But for me, this is one of the hardest parts for me because I was very wrapped up into relationships. I was very close with all my family. I had a lot of friends. I was just very involved with people. And so this is like the dark side of healing your marriage. And when I say dark side, I really mean it because it feels like that you are becoming isolated, that it feels like that you're living in this shadow and that everything that you've known is disappearing and that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what it can feel like in this process. And so we want to encourage you, and how do you come out stronger on the other side with light? Because we don't want to live in darkness, right? And so when you go to heal, when you go to restore your marriage, when you go to pursue Christ and actually live for Christ, and now I don't mean like, oh, I'm going to go to church.
That's what I call a Christian. It's what I call a Christian.
Check box.
Yeah, like a Christian. There's a difference between a Christian and a Christ follower. I'm not being religious and like, oh, I'm better than you. Like, I'm talking like maybe in skill sets, sure, in some different ways in marriage, but I'm not talking about like in like significance. Like when it comes down to it, there are Christ followers, or there are Christians that just go to church. This was me. I would check off a box, literally read my Bible, go to church, and try to be the best person I can be. Cool. It's a good like kind of baby place to start, baby food area, right? But deep calls to deep. And so like when you go into things like really God wants a way deeper and way profound and just glorious life for you to reflect him. And when I say Christ follower, there's a lot of Christians will do what makes them comfortable. Christ followers, you'll see like tons of people on the left, very few people on the right, because it's a hard path. People say like, oh, when you become a Christian, it's easy. Yeah, sure. If you can make a checklist Christian, it's easy. When you become a Christ follower, it's not.
And so when you're starting to go through this journey where you're living differently than the normal, when you're living differently than what you had been and what your whole circle has been living, and when you actually start obeying God, and so not just hearing like, just actually obeying God and living different than culture, and you stop taking everyone's opinion, there are going to be challenges that arise. 100%, like there's challenges that arise. You're going to face some adversity. You're going to face challenges. Yes, there's going to be relationships that you probably lose, and that's okay. So, and I'm going to give you my personal experience through all of this because I went through this. I went through this a lot harder than Tommy did just because like I said, I was a lot more connected. But that's because hence, I was a people pleaser. So of course there's going to be a lot more people in my life, right? And I didn't know how to say no, so I had no boundaries. And then I had a lot of beliefs of like, oh, you're living, breathing, and oh, let's be friends. And so I didn't have standards, boundaries, or anything at this time in my life. And so part of this is you probably will feel let down by people that you thought were always going to be there for you as well. So these are all just normal things that come up. And I want to address them because they're so important. See, go ahead. You want to have something to add on that?
When it comes down to it, like we're basically, to sum it up, like we're talking about like when you go and do something different, which is essentially like saving your marriage, when, especially like if you've listened to any sort of part of our story, everything that we've been through, then people are like, wow, this is a mistake, right? So if you go against the norm of things, like people are going to like not think it's the smartest decision.
Let's talk about the normal real quick, Tommy. Let's just throw out there like what is normal in society today.
What is normal? Well, I mean, you don't have to be a smart person to guess this, but like there's actually, this norm of people getting divorced. Like
that's normal.
You can literally like, I'm exaggerating, but maybe not. I'm sure there's somebody that's done it. You literally fart wrong and like you're getting divorced, or like literally it's like you could breathe wrong. Like I know we just us breathing could annoy each other back then, but like the way we breathe, I'm not even joking. And so, the thing is like people get divorced for whatever reason they feel they deem worthy. Like I'm tired of you, whatever. I'm just going to burn my whole life down and screw my kids over and all of it.
So I also I just think it's become like the fact that like divorce is so normal and having step families is so normal that it's actually more of a rarity to find a couple that is still together where kids are growing up with actual mom and dad and not a blended family. So that is no longer normal to have a whole family. Now it's all blended family. Not all, but majority is blended family. So when we were serving in youth, like there'd be like one student out of 10 or 15 that had mom and dad, and then even their relationship was rocky and they were praying for their family to be united, and the rest were blended families and already divorced. And so that's normal. It's normal to also, it's quite common for people to leave a marriage and then go same-sex marriage right now. Like that's very common.
Yeah, I won't get into that today.
No, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about well, what is normal in society? So those things are normal. It's also normal not to go to church. It's also normal not to go, it's also normal just not to even believe in God and to think, oh, just do whatever you want. It's also normal to set your own standards and own what is right and what is wrong. All of these things are quote unquote normal in today's society. Like, oh, do what you want. Follow your feelings. Do what makes you happy.
Follow your heart, which can be beneficial. So people misinterpret that in the Bible. Like you can follow your heart if you have a redeemed heart and you're actually a true healthy individual. You can have discernment with that. But God explicitly tells, and it's still not a good idea in my opinion, like it's better to just follow like what the Holy Spirit tells you to do and have a relationship with him. Now, once you have a completely pure heart, I'm not saying you're sinless, but there is like, you can actually like listen to it somewhat, but still I think it's a way better idea to listen to the actual Holy Spirit, the creator of all of existence in the universe.
For sure. Because scripturally it says that following your emotions will lead you astray, that that feelings and emotions are fickle and will lead you astray. Go look it up. That's what the Bible says about following your feelings. So feelings are not what we're supposed to follow, but that's normal for today's society. So that today what we're discussing is this difference of, hey, I'm actually going to stand for what's right. Yes, there's been hurt and betrayal in my marriage. Yes, there has been reasons where quote unquote, I could justify a divorce because, everything in today's society is so sexualized, right? Like all of those sorts of things that you could pretty much be like, oh, well, they watched porn and they cheated on me, so therefore before I could divorce them. You know, like those sorts of things. And like God doesn't want division in families. And there's a spiritual ramification to that people are so unaware of. But when you go to save your marriage and go to save your marriage, even if there's been betrayal, even if there's been hurt, even if there's been abuse, and I know some amazing people that, you know, do help abuse victims and stuff like that, but to just like, hey, like just run away from it and just like, no, like there's healing and restoration, right? So just different things along those things of like, hey, you can actually heal. But when you go to live differently than the norm, there's going to be disappointment. There's a journey on the way.
Going against the norm, going against the grain, like it's going upriver. Like it's not, different. It's different. It's going the path less taken, or the narrow road, whatever you want. There's so many different variations of what you could call this, but like that's what this is. And you're going to face people that are like, we even face it till today, not in our marriage necessarily, but like just like in life
and how we live our life.
And how we live our life. Mm-hmm. We live our life by yes and amen. Like, yes, whatever's next, God. Yes, 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 yes. Our answer is already yes to whatever you have for us. Yep. And, you know, like we're moving soon, and, you know, people don't understand it, don't like it. It's okay. Right. I don't care what anybody likes. Your opinion is irrelevant to me. God's opinion is what matters most, because you can't see all beginning and creation, and I just want to be obedient. So this day, like that's what really matters most.
And so we're going to talk about our story, but I just want to like point out a little, I'm just going to go ahead and do a little myth buster here for you, a little tidbit of information. If you want to live a life where you fit in completely, no one judges you and no one talks about you, well, I'm just going to say you have to die for that. Okay, you have to die and be on the right terms with Jesus in order to go to heaven, because otherwise there is that judgment, there's that betrayal, things being held against you. So, because if you're not right with Jesus, you're going to hell, and then there, you know, things are held against you and there's torment. So, I'm not ready for heaven. I'm just saying, I'm not ready. I have more things to do here on earth, and people will judge you. It doesn't matter. You could be doing 100% things right, but because of a hurt or a wound in their eyes, they're gonna have an opinion. And it's just like when people have opinions of you, let them. It's fine. It's when someone says something, it just highlights their beliefs and where they are. I've had people attack me because of the clothes I wear, and I think it's hilarious that they feel like they have to put me down over clothes. And on a scale of 1 to 10, the importance of clothes to me in my world is a 1. I could care less. I wear them, and that's the extent of my care about them, right? So just judgment on things that's so irrelevant. So when you go like, oh, people will judge me, they're judging you already. It's just you can create a life where you're not having that as your God.
Yeah, I believe like if you have a bunch of unhealthy people in your life, here's what's going to happen. If you're at the bottom and you're low, you're not doing well in life, you've hit rock bottom, people will discard you. And forsake you 100%. If you, not everyone, but a good chunk of people. And then if you're above them, they will show their tail to you, and they will like be jealous and envious of you, and like all of a sudden turn on you and stuff when you're more successful than they are in life. Not just talking monetarily, but sure, that's a part of it. And then I'm talking like, but the places like really realistically like that they want you to be at is right here. Right here. They want you, no matter if they're here, they're here, they're here. They want you to be here, because if you're here, it shines a spotlight on their lack of success and their lack of like actually going for life and doing things. Because when you get to heaven, like believe it or not, you can go read your Bible. When you get to heaven, you will get rewards. Heaven is not a communist place. Like you will get rewards. You will be in charge of cities, more like governed cities, like based on what you do here. You will be able to, your job and whatever you do there will be dependent upon what you do here. I'm not saying salvation you can work for, but I'm saying once you get there, there are things you will get, like a grand entrance in heaven. John Bevere talks about this. Literally, and he gives very good scriptural reference to this. Love John Bevere, by the way. If you want us on your podcast, we're here. But like when it comes down to it, it's one of those things where like, no, you will. If you do minimal stuff here, you will not get what you're supposed to get there. Like, and I promise you, God does not want you to live a minimalist, just like, woe is me, broken life here. That is not what God designed you for.
called to be kingdom conquerors, to have kingdom impact, right? Like, so
His kingdom, though.
yes, his kingdom, not our own. This is not a self-centered thing. And so here's a little bit of our story. See, at the time of our hell on earth, we were really known in our community. We were known. And what's funny is like we were a quote unquote power couple then,
which is a complete joke.
It was. Now we actually like fulfill that. But in the past, like it was just an outside appearance, which most people who you think are really power couples, it's an outside appearance. But so we were known in our community and our networks. I had a lot of connections in the career at the time that I was doing. We had friends, I had community, we had family things, and we lived like everyone else. And I mean everyone else that we were currently around. See, like we fit in, and our life looked like their lives in different ways, and we were all the same. So like that level that Tommy talks about was like this, except for I realized that there's always been people in my life that looked at me as like their child. So it's always, I've either had relationships from like here, or it's like they're here and they're like, oh, poor you. So those have been like the relationships that
didn't mean that there were any emotional mature people at all. Yeah, I will say that.
No, I wasn't. They were not.
Definitely not. But like when it comes to it, we were both really well known in our community. I mean, everybody knew my name. And it was actually a part of contention between us because everybody's like, Tommy's wife. And then like, everybody knew me, like literally. We were go-getters then too, but like when it comes down to it, everybody knew us. We were kind of, especially in the business community, like we were huge in that community. Like we had groups, networking stuff, like a lot of people that we knew. I would say that she had a lot more people that like she was more connected with. I had more of like some friends, but then acquaintances, but just more of like kind of a status that I was trying to keep up with locally. But yeah.
Yeah, and so at that time, like, let's be real, like, at the time of our hell on earth, I was the alpha female. I was running things. I ran the house. I ran those things, and I made things happen. I also was making sure that, I made Tommy look good. We're going to talk about a submissive wife another day, but I was in this, like, I cannot stand the whole idea of a submissive wife when it's taken out of context, but it was at this time.
For the record, we are for what the Bible says with submissive wife.
And I live as a submissive wife now, but the correct way.
Yeah, people just misunderstand that. I'm sure this clip is going to be cut up to where it's like, but whatever, and someone else is going to say something. But regardless, yeah, whatever. Regardless, we are for that piece of it, and we're for being a leader. We're for having a submissive wife, for having a helpmate. We're for like all these things, like, and we don't, and there's no minimalization to any of that.
Yeah,
like we're not like woman gets beat down, like so.
Not at all. So at the time, I was the alpha female, and I was making sure Tommy looked good, which is why also I was known as Tommy's wife, or like my kids, like mom, like that's what I was known for, and the career title that I had at the time, like that's what I was known for, and I was there for everyone. Like literally, you could call me, and I would fix your problem. I would solve everyone's problems, the family, friends, like these people, like whatever, like I had this thing, and like I would fix it. Like I was just really good at those things, and so I was really good at saying yes, and I was at all the events, and I was at all the volunteer things, and I was everywhere, and I had I would show up, and so people were like, and I would flirt 100%. I would flirt. I was super flirtless, super flirty, super friendly.
Definitely not flirtless. You were
I was flirty. Very flirty.
But I knew that from the beginning. When we started dating, and like literally I was 16 and she was 15.
That's why people like don't go. You don't marry based on like a hope or I can change them. That's so toxic, and that's manipulative in of itself. We're gonna talk about that a different day.
She's not that way anymore.
I'm not. So there's hope. But I would
clarity.
I would talk about men 100%. Like in derogatory ways or sexy ways. Like, you see that guy? Right? Like I would do those things. The girls, let's just be real. I was around people who were very similar to me. So these people at these events and these professional things were like, that hot guy, like da. Or they were
boss babes united, whatever. That wasn't the group, but it was just like funny. It was just funny, like all these boss babes that can't even take care of their own emotions.
I would disrespect Tommy. I would blame him for so many different things. So, he was the blame of all things. And, in the girls and the female cliques, these are conversations that we were being had. And I know men aren't any better about what they, gossip about with their men friends. I walked in on a conversation with Tommy and the gym buddies one day, which was awful. You can share that here in a minute.
We talked about kind of everything.
Yeah, and I would join in right along what everyone else was doing. So it didn't matter in this time, like whatever everyone else was up to, I would just say yes. Like, hey, you want to do this? Sure. Yes. You want to do this? Yes. Sure. There was no boundaries at that time. I didn't know how to tell people no. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I wanted people to need me. I wanted to be loved and accepted. And so I fought really hard to make that happen. And it came out in a very toxic way. And so this is at that time, like that's how I was living my life.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, man, it people pleasing to the max. I had my own kind of weird version of that, but not. It was more of like status, but at the same time, I did care what people think, obviously, because I was going for status and not stature for sure. But man, she's telling the truth, like 100%. Like she was literally there for everyone, anytime, any day. Like, and people look at that and they're like, oh, that's such an amazing person. I'm just a giver. I'm just a caretaker. You're so amazing. You're so nice. Like all these blah, 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 blah. Like that's what I'm seeing is that's a bunch of unhealthy people congratulating an unhealthy person. People pleasing at the core is selfish. And it's because it's all seeking admiration, using people for self-validation, realistically. So, yeah. Well,
if you want to know more about that, just drop a comment below because we know that offends a lot of people, and that's okay. Well, we just want you to come with curiosity because I've never met someone who was a people pleaser that wasn't exhausted, burnt out, or desperately on the inside crying out, when is someone going to help me?
With the loss of identity completely.
When is someone going to see me? When is it going to be my turn? I've never met a people pleaser who did not have those thoughts. So if you want to know more about that, we want to know, drop it in the comments below. But Tommy, why don't you share a little bit about how like you were living your life in this time when I was doing all of that, just like in brief. Like, I mean, if you have anything you want to add before I.
Like you're talking about like when basically like you were people pleasing and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So back then, like, again, we were both really well known in the community, especially me. Like I would, everybody knew who I was. The whole networking, the whole business community knew who I was for the most part on that, especially on that big side of town. And I had a status, like but it was all false. Like it wasn't real. It was all a false status built up, false perception of I'm successful, I'm the best in the industry, that type of stuff in the area. Now I can actually say that, but then I couldn't say that. It was all false. It was all me trying to like fake it till I make it type crap. And then also, when it came down to it, I was always seeking people's approval in trying to win everybody, trying to win the status, trying to rank my status up by people's perception of me. How much they promote me, who I am, those types of things. I was constantly going for status in the area.
You could tell, like, obviously, like, we both were very unhealthy individuals. And it sometimes, I'm just going to challenge you. It can be really easy to, as we break down and analyze how we used to be, it can be, like, really easy to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I can see how you were a people pleaser and how childish you were and how immature you were and how, like, there's really easy for you to, like, fall into that category where you're like, oh, yeah, you. So just have some self-reflection, like, hey, what kind of behaviors have you...
pull the log out of your own eye, clearly.
How can you look at that for yourself here, right? So here's the thing. That's the status that, like, that's the way that we were living our life. And, family called us, yes, like, and we were there, we'd fix things like that. So we had already, so during Hell on Earth, as we started going through things, everyone knew what we were going through because we were in a gossip, drama-filled environment. Like, let's just be real. Like, that's what we were a part of. And so we had talked about our marriage to friends and family. One of the worst things that you can do. You should not talk to friends and family about your marriage. It causes division. The people that you're talking to are biased because they are going to want to make you feel good. And, that's exactly what was going on here because as I shared about different things going on in our marriage with my friends and my family, I got a lot of people going, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, it is Tommy. Like, it is his fault. He doesn't... Like, he's not leading, which he wasn't, but he doesn't provide, he doesn't do anything, which, I mean, that was a lie. He's really selfish, he's this, he's that, and while some of those things were tendencies that he fell into, that's not who he was at the core, and so they validated me. They were my friends, my family, so whose side did they take? Mine. right? Because they got the version of the stories that came through my lens and how I perceived things. And they weren't objective. They weren't like, oh, let me look at this and even if your friend's like, oh, I'll look at it from an outside perspective, they're biased because they're too close to you to give you that. And Tommy had friends that told him the same thing. Well, your wife's just too flirtatious. She just flirts with everyone. You aren't ever going to get her to be respectful and stay at home.
Yeah, I mean, I had like one person that gave me good advice. You know what that advice was? He said, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I think you should seek God. And it was kind of crappy advice still, to be really honest with you, because, I mean, what does that even really mean for someone in that space? But it was just... It was better than leave her. And
which
so,
was what you got.
Yeah, which is what a lot of people do. I mean, like, she painted a story of me in a very toxic way. I did the same in different ways. And it was with like men, women, both. It didn't matter. I would paint a picture of like, you know, she's well, and we were always painting the picture of we are the victim there.
Absolutely.
Like, and I would paint a picture. Well, she's going out flirting with everyone. I'm pretty sure she's a type C narcissist, which is a covert narcissist. And I have PTSD C when all this, we don't believe in narcissism crap, but like when it comes down to it, like I was convinced of that. And I was like, you know, she did this and she hit me and she did that and she tried to run me over, all these like, you know, and it was all these exaggerated like things. And some of that stuff did happen it just didn't happen to the elevation that I said it back then. Now, don't get me wrong, our story it was crazy. Yep. But like, there's a lot of crazy stuff you'll figure out. But when it comes down to it, yeah, like I painted a picture that was very toxic of her, and we were very toxic. But yeah, it's not okay to paint that picture of your spouse, because what happened was everybody else was like, oh, you should leave her. You deserve better. Well, just do your best. And, you know, kids are resilient and all this stuff. That's
a lot of lies that we were told. Right. And I remember even showing pictures of like one of my affair partners, and like the girlfriends were like, oh, you know, he's this or he's that. And like just dumb things, right? Like, why were you encouraging me to cheat? Like, how dumb is this, right? Like, and don't be like, well, my friends would never do that. Okay, I hear this all the time from people of all status and all levels, and so it happens. Okay, here's the thing. So when we decided, because we got to get back to this point of like, what did we face when we, you know, all right, we're going to stand. And so I was like, all right, no, I was like, actually, like, we're going to stand, we're going to fix our marriage. You know, I want to fix what's between me and Tommy. Well, let me just tell you, everyone had their opinion. So whether it be the associates, whether it be the friends that I knew, whether it be, you know, the family, all of them had their own opinion. And let me just tell you, I don't recall off the top of my head really anyone that was like, yes, you should fix your marriage. I do recall a couple people that told me and privately like, hey, you know, I went through a patch like this in my marriage, and, you know, I do think there's some hope for you. Like, I had a couple people tell me that, but it was so low and limited that it really didn't register, because everyone else was like, oh, you know, it's pretty hopeless and those sorts of things. And I was told, like, you can do so much better. There's so many fish in the sea. You're so amazing. You know, and you're so, and they would compliment me and give me like literally ego fill me and like fill my whole head about like all these amazing things about me. And then like, and so you deserve better, like do this. And, you know, and they were like, I don't want you to follow my footsteps and yada, yada, yada. And just, so it sounded like it was coming from a good place, and it was coming from a place of their wounds, their beliefs. And it was also coming from a place of their own fears and the story that also I had translated over to them. Yeah. So they didn't have any of the actual truth, and they most certainly weren't objective. And
because I was passive, guess what kind of advice I got from the passive men that were naturally around me? Well, you know, I support you in whatever makes you happy. At the end of the day, I mean, I want to see you guys fix this, but, you know, like, I understand, you know, like if you, you know, then they go back talking about them. So like, you know, like when it comes out, like that was like the situation, like we were both very toxic in how we presented everything to everyone else, but we faced a lot of adversity when we went to go fix it and even stand for it and stuff. And like she said, like showing affair partner pictures. I did that 100% to people, and people were like, oh dang, let me look, you know, like all those types of things. Like, and it's like, dude, like what, really? I'd be, if someone showed me that now and I had a friend, not that I would have a friend like that does that, but if I did, I'd be like, dude, what are you freaking doing? Like, are you out of your mind?
I feel like I'm telling your wife.
Like I'm the last person that you want to show that to. Because now, click, screenshot, I'm going to go tell her right now. like, I'm about to ruin and then fix your life for you.
What is hidden will always come out. Okay, what is hidden always comes out. All lies always eventually come out. And
you can't hide it.
So at this time, we faced a lot of adversity, and I noticed that at that time, a lot of my relationships started, like, they were starting to be pulled away. And so the more that I said that I was going to stand and I was starting to grow, and so I'm going to say change, but it's really grow. Like, I started to grow where I was building the correct foundation so that I was getting my identity out of everyone who needs me. I need to be a people pleaser. I need to fix everything for everyone. And because at that time, let's be real, like, I literally could have been put in a crazy home because I was at a breaking point mentally where I was like, I don't know who I am. Like, because when you pour from an empty cup over and over and over again, you end up dry and then freaking out at some point and just breaking, and everyone's breaking looks different. And so mine was like, and so, when I stopped just pouring out of this empty cup and started getting boundaries and started actually loving myself and saying no, and I lost the identities of people pleaser, caretaker, fixer, and I started standing up for myself, and I stopped partaking in gossip and drama. Like, I stopped doing all these things, and all of these are just very basic things that I started doing. And when I did, I recognized that, hey, those gossip circles, those girlfriends and those associates that I was all like, hey, tight with, when I stopped gossiping, it was weird. Like, all of a sudden I'm left out. When I stopped living that like drinking, flirting lifestyle, all of a sudden, like, the people I worked with, like, there was no longer a connection, and they're like, oh, you're this one. And it was like an outcast. Like, so at that time, because I stopped living like the circle that I was around, there was a rejection.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, you'll get rejected by the people around you. Mine was a little bit different, but like, here's the thing. Like, I'm just going to say this. Like, I don't care if you're a guy or a girl. Guys do this too, just in different ways, in some of the same ways. But if you're around people that you're going out and, like, especially like for girls, if they're like going out all slutty and their boobs hanging out and like all this stuff, they're not being like modest about themselves, and they're not like being respectful about their bodies, and like posting, let me post a picture of my face and it's like this, half their forehead's cut off. Like it's just like, really, like, why don't you just take a picture of your boobs and just send that to everyone? Because that's what you're doing. Like, a lot of people like do this type of stuff, and it's provocative, and they're going out and drinking with everybody. They're talking about their spouses with everybody. They're being like boss babes or whatever you want to call it, and like, especially if you're a high achiever, like, cool, like, I'm glad you're building a business, but like, at the same time, like, you have no respect for yourself, and you're attracting every like crap in your life. Same for men. Like, if you're going out and you're being around men that are just drinking all the time, talking about women in provocative ways, like doing all those things, that's not okay. I'm not shaming you. I've been there. She's been there. But what we're saying is that's not friends.
No, it's not.
That's not friends, because you're going to be like, I don't want to lose my friends. That's not friends. They're not friends. They're toxic crabs. They're pulling you to the bottom. Kick them out of your life.
And so we're going to have to totally dive into like friends on another episode. But here's the thing is, like, what happens with that is, because I was no longer living that type of lifestyle, because you attract who you are at your core, like, not at your core, you attract like how you're behaving. So your survival identity, like, that's who you're going to attract. That's why like people pleasers end up with so many people who will constantly ask them for things and like constantly are needed. It's because you're attracting those sorts of things. That's not all people, right? And so like your circle is a reflection of your inner identity and who you are. And like, that's a reflection of your identities. And so when I went through this change, yes, like, I did lose a lot of those relationships. And here's the thing. Some people did choose to grow. Great. When they choose to like change and grow and get out of that environment and start living the correct life, like the life for the Lord and walking in obedience, great. We can be friends. But I'm not going to choose to be friends with people who want to go a different direction. Like, that's totally fine. But the Bible says, like, can two or more walk the same path, like, if they don't agree in direction? And no, like, so you're not going to be friends with people who are living a completely different lifestyle. So my circle changed, my influence changed, my relationships changed. And I'm going to share about like the family one and like the close, like the ones that meant the most to me. I'll share about those because there's probably a lot of fear that you have about losing the relationships that mean the most to you. And so I want to address that. But before we do, I want to talk about like our biggest mistakes in this. And I want to highlight them so that you don't fall into this category. Because one is we were asking people's opinion. And we hit on this earlier when we talked about talking about friends and family.
Can you hold your thought for a second? I want to say something I forgot before we move past here because it's important. So like she lost friends like that. I lost friends when, like, I was like, hey, I need your help and all this type of stuff. And all these people that were like, oh, I love you. And Tommy's amazing and all this other stuff. And like post pictures with Tommy and all this type of stuff at like events and stuff. And then guess what? All those people that we love you, we support you, we look at your stuff, all those types of things. And they just used me. They were part of my circle to use my influence, literally, because guess what happened? When I hit my rock bottom and I lost everything, the business, my family, my wife, my kids, all of this stuff, guess where they were? Nowhere to be found. I literally lost my entire network. When I hit my lowest, none of them were there. They all discarded me 100%. Like they didn't want to deal with me. They didn't want anything to do with me. And it was all gone. So that was my experience with it.
So you can tell like we both had a lot of loss in this season when we chose. And so you can see like in that darkest hour for the both of us that it felt very dark. And it's an area that people don't talk about. And it felt like at the time like there was no light. And it was like, dang, I was like, I'm so isolated. And so you might be experiencing that. And there is hope on the other side and for such a different life. And we'll cover that here in a minute. But so these top mistakes, one of them was talking to friends, family about your marriage, which you should never do. You shouldn't talk to friends and family about your marriage. Mm-mm. And so we asked people for advice whose life we would never want to live. So
still to this day,
there was people were giving us advice that were running around on their spouse. People were giving us advice that had never been married. People were giving us advice that were on their second marriage. Some of them their third. And so you could tell, not a good place.
People should just keep their mouths shut. like, oh my gosh, that your opinion is irrelevant.
And here's another one is even I do know people that are still married to this day. But it's because, they do have the values from the era of like, hey, we don't get divorced.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they have healthy marriages.
Exactly.
People use that all the time on calls with me. They're like, oh, my parents have been married for 50 billion years. Cool. What does their marriage actually look like? Actually,
I was talking to someone the other day and they said, hey, my parents are still married and they're great to look up to. They yell at each other. They belittle each other. They watch porn. They have trouble with intimacy, but because they're still married, they're admirable.
Cool. You got one admirable fact about it, but
so no, that's not a healthy marriage.
That's not healthy.
No.
That's like saying, this is what this is like. That's like saying, I'm going to church. I went to church my whole life, but yet I slept around on my wife. I looked at porn. I argued. I belittled my bride. I didn't even live for God's kingdom purpose. I wasn't a kingdom builder, nothing like that. That's the same concept, but yet, we should look up to them because they went to church their whole life. No one would say that. Well, I can't say no one. Some people are dumb, when it comes down to it, that's not acceptable.
So it's time to rise up. And if that was you and you feel really butthurt right now, before you click off, instead, let's rise up. It's time to rise up. God's in the season of rising people up. He's called us not to be silent, and he's called us to speak the truth and our story. And so that's what we do. And so so that's one big mistake. Another one is surrounding ourselves with people who just wanted us to feel good. They just wanted us to feel good. They didn't want us to have our feelings hurt. They didn't want to be direct. They didn't want us to be sad, or they just wanted us to be happy. And that whole follow your heart sort of thing, right? And they told us how amazing we were, and it was all the other person's fault. There was one person in all of my network and all of my acquaintances and all of my friendships and all of my family that looked at me one day with disgust and because they saw me flirting with another guy, and they said, that's disgusting. And they were so serious and they had it all over their face, and they're like, you're married. That's disgusting. And I love that person. And I get emotional. I'm because that's the person that I needed in my life. And that's the person that we're going to be for you. because it is disgusting to talk about your spouse. It is disgusting to run around on your spouse. You're married. You have a covenant relationship.
Yeah, people are like, oh, but you don't know what they did.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Who cares? I care about what they did. I don't mean that. And like, here's the thing. Like, we both care about what your spouse did. Neither one of you are perfect. But what I'm going to say is like that, like, I don't care what someone else does to me, says about me, looks at me, whatever my life. At the end of the day, I'm a healthy individual, and it is my decision to show up how I choose to show up, how I choose to act. That is all on me. Mm-hmm. That's like saying, well, they stole my toy so now I'll just steal their toy. Like that's
so childish.
But that's how we were. Like, we were literally so dumb and ridiculous back then. So like, if I say someone's acting dumb, by the way, it's only because like that's where I've been. You're not dumb as a person, but that's where I've actually been acting like a dummy. So I've been there plenty of times in my life. Trust me, more times than I can count.
And here's another mistake. And so another big mistake we made was blaming the other person. And I was really good at this because you got to think at this time, like, I managed everything. I worked, I paid the bills, I took care of the kids, I ran the household. Like, I took care of everything, right? So for me doing everything, I was like, well, I do everything. Therefore, nothing can be my fault because I take care of everything. Huge lies. I should not have been taking care of everything. And I was picking up things that weren't mine. I was enabling. There was so many things that I was doing wrong, but I was blind to see because I was like, oh, well, the more that I do, that means the better that I am. I had all kinds of beliefs, and I know a lot of women that are like that. So I'm going to challenge you. I know how driven you are, but I'm going to tell you it's not about doing more. It's actually about doing less and the right things here. But the mistake we made was blaming each other. And then when that didn't work, we blamed other people. And then it was family. And then it was, well, it's God's fault. And one of the hardest things for me to admit at that time was I did get to the point where I was like, why, God, you did this? Why did you do this? Or
why did you allow this? However you want to call it. It's still blaming him on it.
Yeah. And it wasn't God's fault, guys. Like, God did not cause me to cheat. It was not God's will for me to cheat. It wasn't God's will for Tommy to cheat. It wasn't God's will for us to go through those things. Now, did he use it? Absolutely. Now, is it what he designed for us? No, but we had free will.
Yeah, that's like saying if one of my kids were little, why did you pick that toy up and hit him with it? Man, I should have been a better person and prevented you from doing that. People are born with sin. Literally, like, that's how they are. Now, it is my responsibility for cultivating an environment and culture, yes. But I can't, at the end of the day, I still can't prevent that person from doing that. I'm not responsible for my kids. I'm responsible to my kids.
Yeah. So we want to give you, so those were some of the biggest mistakes. And some of the root lesson that we want you to take away from this is we were just like, the real issue is we were just existing. We were just going through the motions. We were in survival. We were just living how society had taught us. We were just continuing to live how we had known growing up. So like, that's what we did. We lived for man. And when I say that we lived for man, I meant that we lived to get people's approval, to have people desire us, to look up to us, to, for that love, for that approval, those sorts of things. And we lived for pleasure. So we were living for be happy and follow your heart. That's what we were living for at that season.
Yeah, follow your feelings. Mm-hmm. Live by feelings. Now we live by the complete opposite. We live by principles over feelings, but we take care of our feelings.
Yes, we do. And so at that time, we obviously weren't living for God. And yes, by the way, we were in church this whole time. So, and actually, go ahead, comment what you want about that. I don't really care. But we were in church the whole time.
Stay in church and you'll be a great person. Not really, especially if your church doesn't have fire in it, but yeah.
So obviously, we were in church. And so at the root, we were living in survival. Our identity was survival and based on others' approval. At that time, like I said, I was people pleaser, the one that everyone could count on. I fixed everything. So I was like the fixer, the caretaker, the one with all the weight on their shoulders. And I wore the pants in the relationship. I was the strong one. And, obviously, I had no clue who I actually was as God designed. No clue. I didn't know what it was like to be a healthy individual, to take care of my emotions and to live in an emotionally regulated way. Like I was an adult body that acted very childish because I didn't have the emotional mental maturity and intelligence, because our society doesn't teach those things. And I know that Tommy wasn't taught those things either. Like most people aren't in our society. Hence the follow your feelings, that's what society teaches. So you can tell society isn't teaching emotional and mental resilience or intelligence at all. But those are some of the biggest things. And we had no foundations to be a healthy individual. Mm-mm. And then if we don't have foundations to be a healthy individual, there's no way you can have a healthy marriage. Because a healthy marriage is two healthy individuals choosing to walk through life together. But it only takes one healthy individual to save your marriage. But it takes two healthy individuals to have a healthy marriage. And our society is not teaching you how to be a healthy individual. So the chance of you actually seeing a true healthy individual is so slim. So slim.
Yeah. Did we talk about, I don't know if we missed that or just skipped over it, but did we talk about how when you went to save our marriage, like you got adversity from family and stuff?
I'm about to talk about that too.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I thought I heard you say we are going to talk about it, so I just want to make sure we missed it. This podcast was primarily written by Desnekka and a little bit of me, but it was Holy Spirit led her to write this. So
yeah, you'll find that the Holy Spirit gives us both different topics to we do it together, but he actually the Holy Spirit will direct one of us to hey, I want you to talk about this. And obviously this topic was a lot bigger to me in my heart, and being on the people pleaser side and the caretaker side, the one who was really connected, who was really relationship driven, more so than Tommy's side on the the more passive side, right? So that's why. But part of the last part of this on the realization and lesson is that we did not have what it took to have a healthy marriage at that time. We didn't have resilience, confidence, courage, faith. We didn't have any of that. We did care more about other people's opinion than what God thought.
Mm-hmm. Highly about other people's opinions.
And it
was almost debilitating.
And it takes humility to admit that. And so consciously, we have to also address this too, because 95% of what runs your everyday decision and every decision you make in life is subconscious, means you don't think about it. So when we are talking and you start consciously thinking, you might consciously be oh, well, that's not me. Of course I value what God says. And of course I want to live a life for God. But that doesn't mean that's actually what's in your deep subconscious. See, when we mentor people, our clients, they have some of those things. And I love my strong women. They're oh yeah, they come in super alpha like me, right? And they're oh yeah, I live for God. And then we break things down and they recognize that the subconscious beliefs they've been carrying weren't in alignment there.
Yep. Yeah. And a lot of people, when they hear this, their pride will come into play here. And watch this. They'll hear us say oh, well, we were people pleasers. Well, then they'll be well, I'm not a people pleaser. We've had so many hundreds and hundreds of clients that have said that exact same thing. And the reality of it is not everyone is, but a good chunk of people, a good predominant most of people are people pleasers to some extent in different unique ways. Mm-hmm. And just because you don't realize it, some people wear it like a badge. I don't know why. I'm a people pleaser. They wear blah, blah, blah. So there are those people, but a lot of people play it so I don't care what people think. Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay. Sure you don't. I used to say that too.
But he did. It's okay. So here's the last piece that I want to talk about the relationships that were really torn. See, I lost the friendships, I lost the associates, I lost fitting into the work environment, the cultures, those sorts of things. And that sucked. It was, I didn't like not fitting in. I had always, wanted to fit in. So that sucked. That felt really isolating. Yeah. But the one that hurt the most was my family. And it was my family didn't want to support me. Now I had a couple in my family that was I'm going to support you no matter what, but they didn't want me to stand for the marriage. They didn't want to see, and it's not that they hate Tommy or hated us together. Actually, it was they hated us together. They did not want to see me live the way we had been living, right? Because
based on the picture that she painted.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, we weren't living great lives.
Yeah, we weren't living great lives.
But still, it was all based on the narrative that
Yeah. So they didn't want me to live in that way, right? Like, so their heart position, so it's not that they had a bad heart. I'm just clarifying that. So it's not when we say that the people aren't supportive of you or they're not giving you the correct advice. I'm not saying they're bad people. They can have the right heart like desire, but they can be giving you awful advice. And that's what was going on here. Is my family was leading me astray because of the living by emotions and not by principles, and they were living from fear. And just like, hey, this is what I've experienced, and so I'm just going to give you like based on my own life experience, but like no backing, no discernment, no healing, no growth, those sorts of things. And that's what was being fed to me. And so it actually got to a point where I stopped talking to my family altogether. So I did stop talking to my mom, my stepdad. I stopped talking to my brother. I stopped talking to everyone. And for context, some people don't care that they stop talking to their family. I talked to my mom and my brother daily.
Still does.
Pretty much do. Like, I can't say every day anymore, but we call each other just about every day. Whether we actually connect, that's a different story. Sometimes it's like every 3 days. But we talk very frequently now. Thanks for blowing that, by the way. It's like builds up for you there. But okay, so you can tell like we obviously
I joke. I'm like, oh, it's mommy time.
Yeah, he jokes about me now. But so there was a season though. So the whole point was there was a season that I had to stop talking to all of them. I had to stop talking to all of them because it was not healthy. They were leading me astray, and they weren't going to be supportive of what was currently going on. And so that was the darkest, like one of the darkest hours of my life. Tommy wanted a divorce. He had divorce papers. He was dating people, and he was planning on moving out, had a city picked out, an apartment picked out. Like he had all this, like he had
3 hours away. I wasn't close.
He was not.
I was done with everything.
He was done. I no longer had friends and family and all the associates. And now I'm not talking to my family. It was one of the most isolating seasons of my life. And I'll have to dive into a whole nother episode about how God used my most isolating season. But I will say that like it was dark for me because I love people. And to this day, I still love people. I will go outside and talk to neighbors just to talk to people. I love people. And
just in a healthy way now.
That time it wasn't. And so that's why it was like one of those darkest seasons. Now, here's the thing I want you to recognize. And there was a turning point. And the turning point was I didn't cave. I didn't go crawling back to any of those relationships. I didn't put down the new things that I was learning. I didn't stop growing and go back to old ways. I didn't try and blend in. I didn't try and get their approval. I stopped living to please others.
Including me.
100%.
Including me. And if she would have went back, I would not be sitting right here, right now. I'd be somewhere probably in a stupid place in my life. But regardless, either way, like it would have been horrible.
And so I stopped living to please others. The second thing I stopped doing was I stopped asking opinions from my circle. Here's kind of a realization that I don't think a lot of people have, because a lot of people turn to their friends and family for advice. Awful. If they're your family, how their belief system, their opinions, everything that they've known has already been taught and instilled into you. That's what formed you. And so, and then your friends, your circle are going to be really on par with you because you attract like-minded people. So if you are around like-minded people and you're talking to your family whose beliefs, like their actions instilled the beliefs in you, is that really going to be any different than what you already believe? Right? No. Like it's one of those silliest things. Like now that I understand how the brain works and I understand the science and how God designed us and our hardwiring and how that affects how we show up, asking the people in your current circle about ways to grow and change is one of the silliest things you can possibly do.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, like people like, well, they have a good heart. They want the best for me. I mean, sure, kind of. They probably have like the motives,
some of them do.
Motives that are good for you. But like, does it mean their advice is going to be good?
No,
that's different. Like people kind of correlate the two. Like, well, because they have a good heart for me, their advice is going to be on point. That's not true.
Yeah, no.
Horrible advice.
And so that's what I was conveying earlier, right? Like, so I lived that. So Tommy's just validating that whole point. And another thing I had to stop doing was I had to stop trying to make anyone else happy and managing anyone else's emotions. And that included Tommy's, which was a huge shift for me. Because remember, I managed everything. I handled everything. I ran the household. And so managing the atmosphere of the home, making sure Tommy was happy and all of those sorts of things were all roles that I had picked up. And I stopped doing all of those. And so I had people mad at me. I legit, like, there was family members that that called me to help, like, they wanted me to help fix a problem. And when I did the same thing to Tommy, but like, when I was like, oh, well, it sounds like you need some time to figure out how to fix that, meaning I'm not going to do it. And I'll give you some time to reflect on that. I got okay. And I got a click on the phone. And when I told Tommy that in person, like, I got a nightmare of a Tommy that came out. It was awful, but I stopped managing people's emotions and I stopped fixing things for them. And I had people mad at me. That's okay. Including Tommy. Tommy was not nice to me during that season. I had people who turned their nose up at me. Like, they just became snooty. They're like, oh, like, that's how you're going to be? Which is really funny because they're like, they had their own judgmental things and then they were snotty towards me. I had people straight tell us that we were stupid for staying in a marriage, stupid for, like, after all the affairs and all the abuse and all the things, stupid for that. I had people who stopped talking to us and just trying to convince us of different things.
Which is ironic because we've had people from our circle back then somehow reach back out to us and work with us as clients. And so it's like, everybody's like, oh, you're kind of, not that they said that, but like, it's just funny because like, it goes back to like, oh, they'll criticize you until you become successful. And then you want, anyways, it's just it's funny.
And so in this season, like, I stopped managing all these things and I really started walking in obedience to God. Like, what does God want? And 100%, there was a day that I was reading my Bible and there was a time that I did not want to save the marriage. I'll be real. Okay. Before I was like, okay, I'm going to save the marriage. I didn't because I was surrounded by all these people. And I was like, God, I just tell me I can divorce him and then I'm going to. And so at least I was turning to God, and I was open to his input. But unfortunately, a lot of people aren't, like, they haven't connected with like their gifts to hear, or their emotions get in the way. There's a whole, I've spent 2 hours with private clients this like the past 2 weeks discussing like what blocks the voice of God even. So like there's a lot that goes into it. But here's the thing is, like, at that time, like, God told me ever so clearly, like, you will fix your marriage and then you're going to use it for my good. And I was like, I was mad. But so I was like, all right. And it was like when at that time when God said, all right, like, now that you're going to live for me and you're going to stop people pleasing, you're going to stop managing image and stop trying to get all these likes and approval and, all these things from men in general, and then just like humans. He's like, now we can make moves. And that's where I really started seeing like God changing my life and different things. Yeah. But it took me building like those foundations and making a shift. And it wasn't through grit.
Yeah. For me, like, I hit rock bottoms, man, this is one of the lowest parts of my life. At one point, briefly, I was living out of my car, and like, then at another point, my parents' place, and then like, and it was just like, I lost everything that I was doing. I lost my network, like everything that I was doing that I thought was special. God stripped it all from me, and it was so painful, and it was so, in my opinion, humiliating back then. And yeah. Because I was so wrapped up in other people's opinions. And I remember like literally just asking God to kill me. Like, I just mentioned on other podcasts, and at different points I had a gun in my chin like 20 plus times, and pills and all this stuff. And none of that stuff's okay. But like, I hit a rock bottom, and I don't want you to think like, oh, well, yeah, you would, because like, look at everything she was doing. No, like, dude, like, I was just as bad.
Yes.
When it came to all of these things. Now, did she start flirting way earlier than I did? Probably, just due to our childhoods. But like, regardless, I was just as equally as fault in this relationship, not just due to my lack of leadership, my passivity crap that I had going on. I was flirting and like having affairs just as much as she was. There was a ton of other stuff that went on in our marriage, from abuse on my end. Like, I was literally talking just as bad about her as she was about me. I was doing a lot of the same things. And because realistically, we were very like king and queen of petty. It was like tit for tat type thing, if you know what that means. But it's just like that's how it was. Like, so I don't want you to think like, oh, well, she was like the only one and you're just the victim in the story. People have said that. And it's like, no, that's not true.
You just haven't listened to the story, because otherwise you would know. But there's a lot of couples that are tit for tat, or like, you did this, I'll do this, and yeah, I see it all the time. And it just shows where the emotional maturity and like the emotional intelligence is there. But a couple of scriptures that really impacted me during the season was Psalm 118:8, and it's better to take refuge in the Lord than trust in man. I had to recognize this, right? Like, that I could no longer trust in man, that I could no longer seek God's approval. In Galatians 1:10 says, for I am seeking the approval of man. It says, for am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. It's like, oh.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and he says, he didn't say Christian, he says servant of Christ. Servant. What is a servant? People just like glaze over things. Like, what does a servant really do? Servant is, in this case, would be like, I'm pretty sure it's like, I'd have to look up the Greek, but I'm pretty sure it's doslos, and it's like a bond servant. And it's like, I've dedicated my life to God. Like, everything is his. I have nothing. I am nothing. Like, this is what, like, God, like all those types of things, like, without, and I'm not saying I am nothing without him. And so like with that, because we're made reflection. So if you don't reflect him, you're not really reflecting anything but crap. So like, yeah. So like, that's super important, like to dive into that.
And then at the time, my favorite verse was Jeremiah 29:11, which is, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. And then I also later learned that it says that if you go to seek him and you earnestly seek him, that he will let you find him. So I love the addition. So I like 11 through 14 now. But at that time, I was like, oh. And so in that darkest hour when I felt like I had lost everyone, I clung to Jeremiah 29:11. And I know a lot of women, that's their favorite verse. And so I'm curious if it's yours. It's still one that's dear to my heart. It's not my absolute favorite anymore. That's a different season of my life, but it's still one that I really do love. But I want to take this time and address a couple of things that you might be thinking or asking, because some of you probably have some really big questions or fears right now about like, oh, if I'm going to stand for my marriage, am I going to lose everything? Am I going to make my life worse? What's going on? And I want to address those because they're real legit fears and great questions. And if I don't address your question and Tommy doesn't address your question, drop it in the comments so that we can address it on the next podcast.
Yeah, I want to say something here real quick. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to like go to save your marriage and then look like an idiot when you don't save it? Okay, if you want to look like an idiot, go to counseling, because you're going to get in your feelings with no action steps or timeline, all to repeat next time, and then it's going to fail. We've had so many couples try to go to that and then lose hope, and then they end up trying to save it on their own. Well, we work with individuals too, but like don't do that. Just as a pregame to this when we're going to this.
So one of my questions is like, do you want to lose all your relationships? You're probably thinking like, no. You might be thinking maybe, I'm kind of over it. But here's the thing is like, my relationships are temporary, and some of your relationships are temporary too. People are for a season. Like, some people are for a season, not your spouse. For the record, they're not for a season.
We thought that at one point. Though. She said that to me. I remember.
You will rebuild from a place of healthy instead of toxic. So actually, when you actually build your marriage from the ground up, starting with the foundations of a healthy individual that are built from God, and then you go into building the healthy foundations in the marriage, and then implementing some tools and tactics after. Like, this is the strategy that we mentor our clients through. But when you do that and you build yourself from healthy foundations and you build your marriage based on this, your entire life and your circle is going to be completely different. Yeah. So what's going to happen is, instead of having relationships with all the toxic patterns, because again, you attract like-minded people. So I had codependency in my marriage. I was extremely codependent. That runs hardcore through my family, codependency. And so I was codependent in our marriage. So if I was codependent in our marriage, that also meant that I was codependent in relationships too. So did I lose those relationships when I stopped being codependent? Yes, I did. Am I sad? No, not at all. Why? Because I am no longer in a place where I have unhealthy relationships. I don't have toxic relationships. All of my relationships are built from a place of health, and they're good relationships. And so that's where I like to be. I don't want to have to, I don't want to carry toxic relationships. So yeah,
I will say this, so I look at it like this. And again, I'm different. I'm also phlegmatic and melancholy, so I'm also different than triple sanguine over here. But like when it comes down to it, like, you can, when you level up, you're going to lose people. That's just what it is. I'm just being honest with you. That's going to happen. So what? You have a choice. You can live for God or you can live for people. And then God will bring back the right people in your life. Mm-hmm. It's a choice. You can either live for God or the devil. You can live for God or the world, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. If you're not for God, you're for the devil. It's one of the two. Like there's no, and I'll stand by that. There's no in the middle. Like you are very like, you have to choose to like actually like live your life for God and actually like don't be all like, well, I don't like religious. I don't know why you listen to this podcast then.
Well,
like
we're not religious.
We're not religious. We're Christian. We're not religious. We're Christ followers.
Christ followers.
Let me rephrase that. I'm not a Christian. I'm a Christ follower. I don't identify like that. But regardless, anyways, one of the things I do want to hit hard here is that like you're going to lose people in your life, but it's not a bad thing. Like they have a choice to level up. And if they don't, sayonara. Like when it comes to like, I'm not talking to your spouse, I'm talking to other people.
And here's the thing, you actually make room for healthy relationships. So for example, like people pleasers are going to be surrounded by people who are constantly needing, who constantly have drama. Their world is falling apart. Like that's who's around people pleasing. Okay. If analyze your circle right now, if there's a lot of people who are drama, all this weird thing that never happens to anyone, always happens to them, like those sorts of things, that's not normal. Like that's just their normal because of, so there are people out there who's not. So you open up the door for healthy relationships, ones that grow you, one that it's not about like using or like those sorts of things, right? And another question is like, well, what if there's a person that I really don't want to lose?
A specific person.
Yeah, a specific person that I really don't want to lose in my life. And like, I love my mom. I love my brother. I love my stepdad. Like, I love, my sister-in-law. Like, I love these like tight relationships that we had. And I was like, I don't want to lose them. But at the end of the day, it was still like, I have to choose, like, am I going to walk in obedience to God or not? And the right people and the people who actually love you will respect you and can honor where you're going. So my family now, like we do have boundaries. They do have respect. They do honor and respect me and Tommy, and they do support us completely different than what life used to be like. And now like all of our family comes and stays with us at different points throughout the year. They stay in our house for a week more. One time my brother's vehicle broke down, like, and he was here for like 2 weeks, and him and his whole family like here for 2 weeks, and totally fine. Yeah. A lot of respect. And so I want to encourage you that just because you grow and just because there might be a season of isolation and a season of, hey, like, I'm not going to have you in my life at this moment until I learn how to bring you in a healthy way with boundaries, with respect, where it goes both ways. Like, that's okay. Like, you can learn that so you can bring them back in.
Yeah. Also, they have to choose to level up to come back into your life. They have to choose to be like, okay, I'm going to respect what you're doing. I don't have to agree with it, but I'm going to respect your decisions and I'm going to act in alignment with that by treating your spouse good, those types of things. And so like when it comes down to it, I faced kind of a fear of mine. Like I've never really been like too much about people, but like when it comes to it, I was in a space where I was like, well, she's painted this really, really, really bad picture of me, and some of it's pretty accurate. And now everybody knows our laundry. We weren't planning on doing this. Like that, I wasn't. And so at that point, and so like when it comes down to it, I had to face like, okay, well, I didn't know this. Like I'm going back into the relationships. And if I choose to repair this, that means I'm also not only going to repair this relationship, but everyone else's view of me now because of the picture that was painted of me. And then also the picture was painted not only by her, but by myself because they knew. And then not only that, not only her family, but also my family and stuff too. Because, I mean, granted, my family, my mom and dad were great. They didn't know what advice to really give other than turn to God, which is great. It's always great advice. But like when it comes down to it, they were like, I love you, son, but you're being an idiot. And so like, it's pretty much like, this is what it was. I remember it, several times over. And so like, we love her. She's a daughter to us. We prayed for her, those types of things. My parents are great. But it was one of those things I had to face adversity and like, okay, I'm gonna have to reprogram their view of me, but now like their view of me is great. I love my extended family. I have great relationships with them. I don't talk to them every single day like Desnekka, but like when they're here, I do. But like when it comes down to it, like we love being around each other. I used to not be around them. Like I used to have to drink to be around them. So there's like different things to understand there, but it can change. I don't want you to be like, well, it's going to be like this forever. No, it doesn't have to be.
And
it's a choice.
Comes so much better. Like that's the biggest thing is like it comes so much better, becomes so much better. And so another question is like, well, it's actually a fear. It's like, well, there's not really people who live like you're talking about who actually honor their spouse, who respect their spouse, who don't yell, who, don't go out and party and don't watch porn. And like, there's not really a lot of people who do those sorts of things, who live a healthy lifestyle. And while granted, I do understand that majority of culture does not.
You're kind of right in a way.
To a point.
To a point.
But there is connections, and it just takes about being intentional. See, all relationships take time, energy, and effort. There are beliefs about like, oh, relationships should flow naturally. No, you're still putting time, energy, and effort into all relationships. So it's not that you're going to actually be lonely. It's just going to take a different type of, instead of being a friend with whoever's convenient or whoever can walk and breathe, which is how I used to pick friends. I no longer pick friends that way. Like, I'm like, no. And so those people that I spend time with, it's different. It's different now. And our clients also like become friends. And so we have friends and networks like that stretch all over the US, from Washington and Utah, all the way down like Texas and Florida, like all the way across.
And some even the world too.
And then the world, like we just have different pinpointed, and so people come together and get connected. So you have an online community, you build local community, and also you become an influence and bring things back into and shape the culture of your entire circle too.
One thing I do want to say is like, I had a lady the other day, she told me like, cause I asked her, I was like, well, don't you think like that if somebody basically like is unhealthy, they're going to attract unhealthy people in their life? She's like, no. And I'm like, wow, I don't know how your mind works, but whatever. It's true. That's true. She's wrong. I'm right. But like when it comes down to that, like that is true. Like you will attract the wrong people into your life. But on the other hand of that, the good part of it, when you become a healthy individual, you will have much higher standards. You will also attract people into your life. Now, is it harder? Yes, because you have to be more intentional about it, because like she said, like you're not just going to go and like find someone that breathes. Like, sure. Which by the way, a lot of people breathe, but they're dead. Anyways, like when it comes down to it, like you're going to find healthy people, and because you attract who you are internally, like people that when you become healthy, people will be repelled by you, but also attracted to you depending on like who they are.
Mm-hmm. And their desire to grow. So you don't have to only be with people, right? Like so we have friends that aren't on the same level as us. We have friends that are down here. We have friends that are here. We have friends that are here. Like it's because like of the healthy and like choosing to grow. And it's more about like the heart and who you are and those sorts of things. And so now we attract like-minded people who are constantly seeking growth and those sorts of things. And so clearly you can see, and we've been talking about this throughout, but like where we are now is completely different than where we used to be. Our relationships and our circles and our community is completely different. So, one, just between Tommy and I, like, we're still married to the same person and in a healthy way. And we actually like each other now, which during Hell on Earth and earlier in the marriage, a lot of times we hated each other, but we actually like each other. And there is more trust and love in our relationship now than what there was ever in the relationship. And then our relationships with other people are fulfilling. They're rewarding. They challenge us. They inspire us. They're no longer dragging us away from God. They're no longer being draining, like, oh, just like, about being around that person. No, like when we spend time with people, like we're lifted up, we're elevated, and vice versa. Like when we are around other people, we elevate them, we lift them up. It's like, we surround ourselves intentionally to grow.
Yeah. And essentially like for example, like even though like there's a lot of great people in our lives right now, we're moving to like, Sarasota, Tampa area of Florida, which is like one, really wealthy, and it's a really good area. We're not all about money, but it's like, hey, you want to be around high achievers, you got to move where they are. And so like we are
There's excited. A lot of growth.
There's a lot of growth there. Like a lot of high achievers, a lot of growth, a lot of like business being done. Like God wants us to move there. So if he would have told us to move to Antarctica, I would have, but he wouldn't, because he knows her. So like
I would die because I would turn into a popsicle.
Yeah, like we would do whatever he says at the end of the day. But the thing is like, I am so excited to move there because like of the relationships that we're also going to continue to grow in and build even more than what we have now, which is great. And so, but it's intentional. We wouldn't do that. Like most people wouldn't even do that. But like, wow, you're just going to uproot and move.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
God said so.
I
will.
God said we will. So that's what we're going to do.
So, and where else are we now? So currently, like, so I love that we're still united. But here's the thing, because of who we surround ourselves with, and because of our standards, and because of our boundaries, and because how we live our life, there's a massive ripple effect. See, we do shape culture, we do shape influence. Not only are our clients and those that we mentor elevated with their kids being impacted and their churches and their circle and their friends, but I just even look and reflect like where our own kids are. Like, our own kids, they're 13 and 16 right now. That's how old our kids are. They're not interested in the opposite sex of like, hey, that thing's so hot. Like, I want, like, pick me. Like,
very different than our childhood.
At 16, like, I was already engulfed in Tommy, and I was like, oh, see me, love me. Like, because like my mindset was like, I need external validation. I need a man to love me. That's how I grew up, right? And so that the kids are seeing different. They're not yelling, they're not screaming. They don't grow up in a home where yelling and screaming is normal. When they see yelling and screaming between a couple, like they're like, what's wrong with them? They've literally asked me that. Like when people yell and scream, they're like, what's wrong with them? And so we have those discussions. And so they're going to be having and attracting relationships that are way higher and way more elevated than what we ever experienced at that age, for sure.
Yep.
Because of that. So that's a huge thing.
Yeah. Also, what I will say, I know she said like she's not in a place where she needs a man now, which you may think, oh well, she's into feminism or she's into no, dude, no. Like, you should never, ever, 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 ever need anyone except for Jesus. I don't need her. She doesn't need me. We want each other. That's different. We love each other. That's different. But to need your spouse is to have your identity into them. To need your kids is to have your identity into them. To need, like, but I want my identity in Christ. I do need him, like, daily, every minute.
Throughout the day.
I don't know what I would do
without the seconds.
Yeah, like seconds matter. Like, so, like, yeah. Anyways, that's what I want to say there.
Because and it's huge. And so I know that I've heard comments in the past when we've said those things like we don't need each other. People get really offended. They're like, oh, but I do. And I want my spouse to need me. So
thanks for telling me your identities in your spouse.
There's identity issues going on. It's not from a place of judgment. We've been there, but there is hope, and that's not how God designed you. Because there's a whole slew of problems that come along with that. And so if you're curious, drop it in the chat. We want to hear from you. But I want to, one of my last things that I want to leave you with that's important and might be going through your mind is like, well, everything that you guys went through, and then all the adversity that you faced of everyone turning their backs on you, everyone calling you stupid, like losing all those relationships that you had, working through all the trauma, working through all the abuse, all the affairs, all those things. Was it worth it?
Yeah.
1,000,000 and billion% yes. It was worth it to work through and restore. I wouldn't choose another route any day.
Yeah, it's 100% worth it. Like, I mean, especially like not only in our own lives, but also like the amount of lives and just we've helped 500 plus clients, but I mean, it's going to continue to grow. With God's impact is going to continue to grow in that. But it's like, we've multiplied through God working through us like so many generations now. For generations, it's a ripple effect. Like Desnekka says, she says that a lot, but like, it's one of those things that is true. And like, we do live our life with our dreams and our aspirations and like God's kingdom in mind. We live our life on fire for God's kingdom and wanting to, and when you do that, you're going to face adversity, not only through demonic, but also through like people, even a lot of Christians will hate on you too. And we've had that. In fact, I've had more Christians, and like, religious people hate on us more than anybody else, but like we go after dreams. Like we have a lot of dreams and aspirations that we want. I could list so many different things. I won't go into it here because just time's sake. But regardless, like we have a lot of things that we want to do individually and together. And when it comes down to it, I think that's amazing. So.
And we will continue to do this, even if it's for one. And so God's always talked to me in this way. And he's like, even if it's for the one. And he reminds me when I stray away from this, or if I get into my own head or forget, or just, it's been a while since we've talked about it, he will bring back the scripture about the 99 sheep and the one lost, right? And like celebrating that one found. And so even if everything that we do is only for one, like then it was worth it. So like 100%, like it's worth it because that one matters. Like you matter, your relationship matters. And so when you go to change your life, you are going to face adversity. I don't want to lie to you. I think that if we tried to tell you like, hey, your life's going to be so peachy, that you would be set up for failure. And we're not here to set you up to fail. We want to set you up for success. And that comes with honesty. And so part of that is just that, is that you will face adversity, but knowing that and knowing how to handle adversity and how to handle these relationships and how to recreate healthy relationships and healthy friendships that elevate you and bring you closer to who God's called you to be. That's what you want in your life. And let's be honest, like you're here listening. Obviously you want a different life. Obviously, you're not happy with how things had been. And so, yes, there will be adversity changing. Sometimes you might go through an isolating season. I have a whole other lesson that we can talk about that on a different day, but things will be different. And I'm just going to say that 100% every day, people are growing, but it's a choice. Are you going to grow in a direction that aligns with drawing you into Christ, looking more and more like Christ, being refined and shaped into Christ? Or are you going in the direction of the survival patterns that you've been in, that's continuing to spiral, that's continuing to create more toxic, more unhealthy? And because you're changing every day. It's just a choice on which direction you're going. This is why there's so many older people who are very bitter, alone, resentful, and isolated, because they've continued the isolating, they've continued that survivalist pattern. And it's pushed everyone away after so long. It always does. And so you can choose, which direction are you going to choose to go in? Are you going to choose to grow and choose to face that adversity and grow in Christ? Or are you going to choose to change in the negative toxic cycle that you've been, where you end up alone, bitter, isolated, but without anything, and just a life of resentment?
Yeah, I mean, and no, here's the thing. Like if you want help, we're here. We're just telling our story here. We're not here to like pitch you on what we do, but like, I mean, if you want help from people that have been through this, and we have a 98% success rate with what we do. We've helped over 500 plus couples around the world and individuals. And like, if you want help fixing this, no matter if your spouse is on board or off board, just reach out, like book a call. There's show notes. You can go whatever down below. You can book a call if you want. We would love to talk to you and see if this makes sense.
Yeah.
So
we do know it's a whole different journey when you try and do it alone, because we've been there, we did that. And then when you do it together and in a community that understands is there. And just like this, like you don't have to be isolated walking through this journey, and you can have all the steps lined out for you.
Yep. You don't have to do it alone. So do you want to go into reflection questions?
No, I don't have anything else. If there's this particular question that you have for us, make sure you drop it in the comments below, though, so that we can address it before the next podcast.
Yeah, if you literally have any questions, just drop them down below, whether you're on YouTube or wherever you're at listening to this or watching it. But as always, we love you. God loves you. He wants to see your marriage restored, and we will see you or you'll hear us, wherever you're at, on the next podcast. Have a good one. Bye.